before you go to market, you could be making some bad mistakes, as I understand it. What's the first mistake here?
Yeah, sure. So you mentioned something I always like to start my topics with just to really, really emphasize it, which is that for most physical goods e-commerce sellers, more than half of the money that they ever put in their own pocket, what I call their me pocket, comes from the exit transaction and not the entire lifetime that they're running the business. And that's because, as everybody knows, you're growing up your inventory. You have to keep buying more inventory, having more in stock. There's also tax advantages when you exit. So I'm always looking at things at after tax dollars. So I always like to start there because my next question, usually, and I'll ask it sort of virtually here for the people on the podcast, is if there's one thing that will give you more than half of the money in your own pocket. I'm talking not about life and enjoyment, but just about the economics of your business. How much of your average week are you spending planning for that event? And when I do it on a webinar and show a show of hands, once everybody understands that 50, 60, 70, or 80% of their money is going to come when they exit, and I ask what percentage of people are spending 5% or more on working toward that exit, generally less than 10% of people's hands go up. Nobody raises their hand. So I always like to start with the fact the number one thing that you're doing wrong and is a deal killer is that you're not spending enough time thinking strategically about your exit, which means that you're making decisions in a vacuum. It would be like saying if 80% of my cost of goods sold in my business is due to this one thing, but I'm not going to focus on it, that you wouldn't get very far building a product business. It's the same thing when you're thinking about exit. So the biggest mistake that I would encourage people, their deal killer is actually not thinking that they can exit and not spending enough time strategically planning for that exit. Now, once we get over that hurdle and you say, okay, Scott, I believe you, I'm going to start spending 5 or maybe 10%, 2 to 4 hours a week planning for your exit, you might not know what to do. And we can now talk about the other deal killers of things that you should focus on. But my number one thing I always want to get people over is to recognize that you do have an exit for your business. You're worth something today if you're profitable. That might not be what you want to be. And there's a plan toward getting to the value that you want, much like a thermometer raises its temperature, not a light switch that's an on off switch. It's about raising up to the valuation that you're looking to. So I'll start with that as the first deal killer.